Well, hey there, everyone. Megan Summerall here. This little video is long overdue. It is something that I have had many people ask me to do a podcast about, a video on, etc., and I am finally getting around to it. So today I am going to share all the, for lack of better words, I guess the behind the scenes stuff, and really share about our experience on Love It or List It. Now, because it is me and I'm a time management and productivity coach, you're not going to get out of this without getting some time management tips and tricks, because honestly, they helped make our experience the crazy, awesome one that it was. So I am going to kind of share with you from beginning to end our journey of, how we got on the show, the during of it, the after. And if you have not seen it before and you don't want any spoiler alerts, I would watch it before you come back and listen, because I will be talking about the decisions that we made during and after as well. So the backstory of this is really, really interesting. We actually did not set out to be a part of the show. My husband and I had been back and forth for 7, 8 years on, do we move? Do we remodel? We'd go look at houses. We couldn't agree on anything. I would love the house. He hated the lot. He would love the lot. I'd hate the house or the location. And we had done some remodeling in our home because when we got married, it was an older home. But our experiences with remodeling weren't always great. So we're always very hesitant. And my husband works in construction as well. So he knows enough to be very cautious about finding a really good contractor and project manager. And given the size of renovations we wanted to do, we knew we needed, this was not something one of us could take on managing because we both work full time. So I share in a podcast episode a lot about my beliefs around manifestation. And for me, this experience was honestly manifested. A very long story short, I write a letter to myself at the end of every year, as if it was a year later, where I actually outline all the things I'm grateful for that are about to happen over the next year. I've been doing this for years, and back in 2018, I guess at the end of 2018, when I was writing my letter to myself for the end of 2019, there was a lot of content in there about being so grateful that we were now finally living in our dream home. I didn't know what the heck that meant. I assumed we would be moving. I would, who knows? But I wrote with great detail about that. Now, as 2019 played out that summer, my daughter and I went up to visit my sister for a week. And while I was at my sister's house, she was the one who first said, you guys should do Love It or List It. Because it was up Friday night, we were up late talking, and I was complaining about the house. And I laughed. I'm like, Jeff, my husband, there's no way he's going to want to do that. She's like, well, let's just figure it out anyway. So we get online, we dig around, we find the application. It's like 3 inches thick. We print it out. And the next day I got my car to drive back home with my daughter. What was going on that exact same Friday night back home here in North Carolina, my husband had gone out to walk the dog and could hear some live music playing not too far away. We have an amphitheater near our house. And he had a week alone and been a heck of a week at work. So he got online, saw what kind of music he enjoyed, and got himself a ticket and heads on over. And it was kind of assigned seating at some little, tables in the back, and sits down, and it ends up sitting that, doesn't know anybody there. And the gentleman he's sitting next to happens to be a contractor, a general contractor that does massive home renovations. And they hit it off. And by the end of the evening had exchanged contact information. His name was Jason, and he followed up with us. And now during this whole time, I'm coming home. My husband's having this thing on that Friday night. I get back home and I kind of tuck away this application in my office thinking, wonder how I could talk him into letting me even just apply. Well, when I got home, he was super excited because he found someone he believed that we, might be a good general contractor. So they follow up over the course of the next several weeks and finally schedule an appointment for him to come over and take a look at our house. I still haven't mentioned this application sitting there, like smoking in my desk. Well, the day of the appointment arrives and he said, oh yeah, he's got a business partner. So there's a knock at the door, and I go and I open the front door, and there's the gentleman, Jason, and standing next to him is someone I absolutely recognize, Jenny. You may have seen her on the show, Hillary's design assistant, and they're standing there on our front doorstep, and I flip out because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Jenny from Love It or List It. And my husband is going, what's Love It or List It? Like he had not ever seen the show. So they come in, we show them, all the stuff that we're thinking about changing with the house, all the things we want to do. Of course, I'm kind of asking little questions about the show. And at the end of the conversation, I told them how crazy it was that I'd actually printed out that application. And so they asked if that was something we were interested in. We chatted about the ins and outs of what it involves. And we thought, well, we might be. So the very next day, I filled out the whole application, and we got a call that day. And they came over, the producers from the show came over, looked at the house, got some video footage of it. And long story short, we got selected to be on the show. So that by itself is crazy town, how that had even come to be. And my husband, who is not one who would have ever agreed to be on a TV show, absolutely fell in love with the general contractor and knew they were going to be a dynamite team for us. So now here we are, it's coming on late fall, and the decision is made that we're going to start our filming kind of early December. So things moved pretty quick. So here's where you're going to get some of my time management organization tips thrown at you. My husband and I both work full time. I have multiple businesses. We have a 10, that time 9, 8, can't do the math, daughter, and it's approaching the holidays. And we now need to coordinate packing up all of our belongings, getting them out of the house into pods, and then moving to a temporary housing situation while the renovation is being done. Because when you see the show, you recognize the house is emptied. I mean, they're doing massive work in there. And I also need to be able to still put on an enjoyable Christmas for our family. So it was a lot to juggle. Excuse me. But thankfully, I went out and pulled out a lot of my trusty systems and processes. So the first thing I did was make a list of, okay, what's everything that's got to get done, high level, finding a place to live, figuring out storage for the furniture, hiring people to help us getting it out, packing it all, so on, getting the mail changed, getting a PO box, all that kind of stuff. Then with the large items, particularly the packing up of the house, it can feel very daunting, and it is. If you've moved, So when I went to do that part of it, what I actually did, of course, I made spreadsheets, was I walked through the house and I made a list of every closet and every room that needed to be packed. And I always include the closet separately because a closet sometimes is, can be hours of packing depending upon the type of closets you have. So when I laid it all out, I then put the end date of when does all of these things need to be packed in boxes. And I looked at how many rows were on that spreadsheet and then divided it up evenly to say, okay, this week, these 6 rows will be done. This week, these 6 rows will be done. And by doing that, it allowed me to actually not get into complete panic mode, stress, and overwhelm. Because if I instead had climbed into my bed every night and had thought about, oh my God, I've got to pack up everything in this house, I never would have relaxed. Instead, to be able to climb into bed and say, well, I got that closet done today, I'm on track, made that whole process of getting ready to embark on this journey that much better. Now, right after Christmas, that kind of week between Christmas and New Year's is when we needed to be fully out of the house. The renovation was starting right at the beginning of January. And to be honest, like the renovation part from our perspective was the most stress-free part of it. Packing up everything and getting out was a lot of work, but there's something tremendously freeing about not being involved in the renovation. Now, it was hard for my husband because he is in the construction industry and I'm a control freak, so I like to see things. But I will say the fact that what you see on TV where the homeowners are not there all the time, that is real. So when the renovation was happening from a scheduling and management perspective, all that we were left to deal with was showing up at dates and times to look at homes. And then showing up on the dates and times where we needed to show up at the house to discuss anything that was, going on during the renovation. So for us at that time, the only real thing that threw me a curveball was just making sure I had childcare in place on the days that we actually needed to go in and do the filming in case it ran past when school ended. But for that period of time, it was really very calming. It was a ton of fun. And we were just excited to kind of see where this journey was going to go. It's, going out and looking at houses is fun. I enjoy that. Wondering what was going on at our house was really exciting as well. So now let's talk about the day of the great reveal, where we actually got to see our home and had to decide, do we want to love it or list it? Now, what you can't tell when you're watching the TV program, because they don't put dates up there, is the weeks leading up to the day we got to see our house is when COVID was escalating significantly here in our country. And so the emotions, the anxiety, everything around it was getting very intense. And we saw our house on a Thursday. And that was the week where schools started deciding, oh, we're going to close down. My daughter's school had still been open that week, and there was talk of a shutdown. So when we showed up Thursday morning to, come and see our finished home for the first time, you can imagine just all that was going on in our head and the emotions of it. It was the first time, we showed up and the film crew was all being super, super safe. And it was before the mask ordinances had started, but they were with that on. And it felt very surreal. And so we show up, we get to walk through and see all the incredible changes that they've done in our house. So our heads are spinning from what's going on in our country and the world. Then our head is spinning from everything that we were seeing here in the house, and then remembering all the homes that we had looked at. And you saw in the show that we did at the end, spoiler alert, we did at the end say, we're going to list it. Now that was on Thursday. On Friday, I picked my daughter up from school, and as we were picking her up, they were packing everything to take home because they said we're going to be going virtual next week. And then on that weekend is when the shutdown happened. So the timing was crazy. So now here we were with everything being shut down. How are we supposed to list and show a house? How are we supposed to move? Like, we just needed to hunker down and ride this out and see what was going on. So we, got our pods back. Thankfully, we're able to find some gentlemen to help us carry the heavy stuff into the house, and we just want to get back into our house, get everything in, and kind of ride this out and see what happens. Well, it went on a lot longer than any of us predicted, right? And over the course of us coming back into our house, we just settled in and we found a whole new normal, and we absolutely loved it. And so months later, when things started opening back up, we were really settled in here. And so thankfully, we were able to just stay instead of actually packing up and moving it. And it is a decision we have not regretted once. And I know that this confused a lot of people because I'm on video quite a bit, and you see the absolutely stunning custom bee decals behind me because I have a bee on my logo, and people had seen that. And then when they saw the show, they saw this gorgeous office. They're like, but wait a minute, you said list it. Well, that's because the timing, people didn't understand what was going on, because by the time you film things versus air them, of course, is very different. So that is why what you see on TV is actually here. This is where I work. It is my gorgeous space that I love. And I am going to work on putting together some other videos and take you on a tour of kind of how we ended up settling into our beautiful home here and some of my favorite spaces to sit and work. So I'm going to wrap things up with just answering some of the most frequently asked questions that I get over and over and over again. First one, people always say, do you really, the show talks about the budget, and they say, well, do you really pay for that? Of course you do. You're renovating your home. So yes, you do pay for your own renovation. And it cracked me up because people then asked, oh, did you have to record saying both love it and then list it? No, but we got to pick. We said it, it was recorded once, it was done. None of that is pre-whatevered. They also ask, like, was this reveal when we come in and see the house, like, staged or fake? Like, had we been in here for a while and then videoed it? No, it was absolutely real time, 100% authentic. We had not seen any of it. And when you see the scene of me coming into my office, my emotions were real. They were raw. It was, I still, when I sit in here, it just overwhelms me with incredible joy. So that is 100% genuine. And you can imagine how emotionally overwhelming it is to see and process all of that at once. Another question I get a lot is, were the houses that we looked at actually for sale? Of course they are. We were out looking at houses. It is love it or list it. So yes, all of those houses were legit for sale on the market. I get asked just a lot, like, what was it like? And the only word I can come up with is surreal. My husband and I will still look at each other sometimes in the morning and be like, did that happen? Did we actually do that? The whole experience just was so not the norm. It was just completely surreal. People have asked me what the crew was like, the film crew and everybody. The most incredible group of people, kind, nice, genuine, funny. We had a lot of laughs. To this day, we still keep up with several of them. They brought us into their family, and we felt like they are honestly a part of ours. We spent a lot of time on different sets and whatnot with them. An absolutely delightful group of people. Lots of just mutual respect there. And finally, we do get people, particularly with my husband in construction, wondering, like, what was the quality of the work? It is phenomenal. It is top notch. We have been unbelievably I keep saying overwhelmed a lot, but just blown away with the quality of the renovations that were done here. Jason and Jenny, again, the co-founders of Behind the Scenes, you see them in the credits, you see them on the TV show. They are the construction management team, and they're local here in Raleigh. So if anybody in this area is looking for a home renovation project, you can actually reach out to them and see if you can get on their schedule or not. But we have not, it's not something where once we got home, we're like, oh, that wasn't very good. It's absolutely incredible. My husband and I, this has been months now, we still argue every single week on who has the best office. Obvi, that would be me, but he still thinks that he does, and I think that's a fantastic place to be. So thank you for letting me come on and share this. Hopefully this answers all of your questions. If you have any others, please drop them in the comments below. But it was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and one that we are thrilled that we did, have absolutely no regrets, and am thankful every day that the timing played out as it did, and that we had a place to come home to when the shutdown happened. So I'll see you guys back here again soon.